people in this business want to know if they're the only person who's dealing with this particular challenge. And I think it's helpful to say, oh, no. All of us are struggling with turnover. All of us are struggling with customer issues.
Welcome to Beyond Clean with Ace. In the world of commercial cleaning, whether you're new to the industry or a seasoned professional, you know we're all more than just toilets, windows, and floors. We're just like everyone else with diverse interests in everything. Now in Season 9, tens of thousands have discovered engaging and thoughtful knowledge that's truly game-changing at Beyond Clean with Ace. Whether you're a facility manager, a frontline staff member, or a building services contractor, we're here to help you grow personally and professionally. So hit that subscribe button and share with others. We're all about enhancing lives in healthy, positive, and proactive ways. So join me, Dave Thompson, Director of the Academy of Cleaning Excellence, your host at Beyond Clean with Ace.
Well, hello, everyone. You have tuned into another episode of Beyond Clean with Ace. You can see here we're at Season 9, halfway through the season. And, I was looking at all of the records about how many podcasts and everything. I have to say thank you today. First of all, we're over 22,000 downloads in the 9 years, so I really do appreciate that. We have another channel that we put it out on, and, through Gym Supply, who sponsors our program. And on that channel, we've got another 21,000. So you put it all together, that we're getting close to 40 to 45,000 downloads. That's all because of you folks. So please, podcasts are only good if you like and share, because that's what this is all about. We get on there and we talk about things, we say things, and it's you that are actually downloading those and sharing those. And that being said, you didn't come here to listen to me just rattle on. Hopefully, if technology works with me the best way it should, somebody else is going to come on the line and talk instead of me.
How are you, Dave?
I was hoping you were going to say something.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
It's good to be seen. We were just talking before we got on the air, folks, that, hey, we're both in the same category as far as age, and we even have the same barber too, Jeff.
We have the same barber. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I always say that our brains have worked so hard all of our lives, it's just burned off all the hair.
Well, gosh, I went this way a long time ago, so I burned all the brains off early.
That's right. That's right.
So folks, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see what we're talking about. If you're listening on a podcast, sorry, folks, we're both bald. That's what we're talking about.
That's right.
We both got a smile. We show our teeth, and it's the biggest thing on our face, right?
That's right.
Okay, so let's kind of get started. Jeff, this is your first time on the show, so let's kind of start that way with who you are, what you do, and why we're listening to you today.
Yep. Well, again, thanks for having me on, and I've watched your podcast and listened to it, and watch it on YouTube and listen to it. You do such a great job. You're just a blessing to the industry. So thank you for that. I always talk. You mentioned I just turned 61 years this year, so I've been in the workforce for 40 years, and I've really had I've had 4 different careers, which is a little unusual. I spent about 10 years in the natural gas industry when I got out of school. So I'm a proud University of Tennessee graduate. So I graduated from Tennessee, worked in the natural gas industry for about 10 years, and then moved over and worked for a ministry in South Carolina called Upward Sports. It's Upward Basketball, kind of the most well-known of the programs that we had. And I worked there for about 10 years. Both of those jobs were really in growth. So I was in both natural gas industry and at Upward. I was most of my role was about how to grow, part of growing both. And then after that, I moved over, and I had a friend of mine who was in Owensboro, which is where we lived before we moved to South Carolina, Owensboro, Kentucky, who's an orthopedic surgeon. And he called me on the phone and he said, "Hey, our medical practice manager just quit, and we need somebody to run our practice. So why don't you guys move back to Owensboro and do that?" And so I did that, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I figured it out. But it was about 10 years of it was just a challenging job. So I'm in my 50s, and I said, you know what, I think I'm ready to kind of get into a role where I can kind of work for myself. I don't have a lot of people working for me, and just kind of get on the glide pattern for the rest of my career doing something back into sales or business growth. And so a good friend of mine who I went to church with, Jordan Tong, who is the president and CEO of Frantz Building Services and Elite BSC, we go to church together, and I just happened to mention to him that I was looking to do something different. And he said, hey, we're looking to grow our company. And so I came on at Frantz Building Services about 10 years ago in business development, starting to grow the business. They really didn't have much of a process for growing the business. So I came on right after COVID, when the industry went through so much turmoil. I jumped over and did operations for about 2 years, and then I went, I'm ready to go back and start doing sales and business development. And so I did that, and then in 2017, Jordan, who's very entrepreneurial, decided to start a mastermind group he called it Elite BSC. And so the whole purpose then was just to kind of create a community of like-minded janitorial commercial janitorial companies. And he started that in 2017. And so I probably spent, when I was at Frantz, probably 20 to 30% of my time doing Elite BSC stuff and the rest at Frantz. And then at the end of 2024, I left Frantz and moved over to Elite full time. And so that's what I'm doing now. And I've been doing that full time since the first of the year. And I love it. It's an enjoyable industry, and I like doing the work.
Well, that brings up interesting, because I just kind of choose people to be on the podcast, and you and I were on LinkedIn, and we talk back and forth. And quite honestly, that's where a lot of people and contacts come, is from LinkedIn, and we talk and we find a mutual thing. And somebody said, well, wait a minute. Aren't they competitors of you? Don't they teach what you teach? And why are you going to have them on your podcast? And I'm like, I have my thoughts about competition, but this is your show.
Yeah, well, so I think good. It's a good point. But here's how I think about it. Is there is a lot of janitorial companies out there, and there's a lot of us. I mean, there's you, and there's a lot of us doing similar things, but I think we're all a little bit different in the things that we do. And I think it's good for anybody that's in the commercial janitorial space is to hook up with there's you and us. And I think there's other companies out there that all are providing good services into the industry to help with training, leadership development, how to grow your business. So I think there is, I don't know. My dad used to say that's why they make Fords and Chevys, so that people can select who they want to do business with, because I think we're all doing good work out there.
So do you find people always asking you what's right and what's wrong?
Yeah, yes. I think more than, here's what I do think. I think a lot of times people in this business want to know if they're the only person who's dealing with this particular challenge. And I think it's helpful to say, oh, no. All of us are struggling with turnover. All of us are struggling with customer issues. So yes, but I get a decent amount of questions. We provide training, advice on a variety of different things. I think personally, probably the thing that I see most, and I coach, consult, whatever the case might be.
Whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Whatever term you want to put on it, we all do the same thing, right?
Right. Yeah. A lot of what I work with folks on, me personally, is growing their business. That's probably where the bulk of my work has been, as in my career, it's been growing businesses. And so, I think that's probably where I spend the bulk of my time.
So whenever you say that, and people that are listening, and we have entrepreneurs, we have frontline workers, we have people that, as you said, are from other industries thinking about a career change. Right. And that's a wonderful thing about a podcast. You never know where somebody is at the time that they listen. But the question here is, as you said that, I'm thinking, when you talk about growth, and we've had several people on the podcast before that talks about this, Growth is from what to what?
Yeah. So that's a great question, and that's a question that every company needs to decide that for themselves. I just came from a conference in Nashville where I talked about understanding your market, and I went back to say, a lot of when each company needs to decide what their growth needs to look like or wants to look like. So, for instance, there's a guy that's in our group that he wants to grow, but he wants to have a company that grows in such a way that he's not always engaged with the business. So that means let me back up. It's not a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week business. So consequently, he calls on customers that most of the work gets done between 5 and midnight. And then he doesn't do hardly any work that's done on the weekends, which I think is a great way to do it.
Structure your business the way you want to, man.
That's right. There's plenty of business out there. And so I think from a business growth standpoint, I think every company really needs to dig into that ideal customer profile. And I know all of us kind of throw that around, but there's a lot of factors that go into deciding who it is that you're going to serve. And then once you decide that, then you can say, now what does my growth strategy look like based on the type of people that I want to serve?
Well, and so many people don't know even how to get started with doing that part, let alone getting to we've seen this, even though you've only been in the cleaning industry for roughly 9-10 years. Yeah. We see this all the time. I've seen it for decades. That we have so many new businesses coming in. You hear somebody say, "Oh, we're only a $2 million company," but yet there's a lot of people that don't make it past 5 years. Right? Why do they not? So whenever you say growth in people, are you dealing with a lot of $1 million or $20 million? I mean, or do you rate it that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most of the people that are in Elite BSC, and by the way, we've got about 150 companies that are part of Elite BSC. Okay. And most of those companies, if I had to say where's the range where most of the people are, most of the companies are between, say, let's call it 10 and 2 and 10 million. So that's probably what. Okay. Yeah, 2 and 10. That's where most of the people are. But we've got some that are a bit smaller than that, and then we've got some fairly large companies in the group as well.
Well, and the reason I wanted to mention that, since you led with that avenue, is that there's people that listen to these podcasts and go, "Oh, I'm a small potato, I can't get there," or I'm already at 20 million, I can't really learn anything from this. And I think this is what we were talking about. Competition has different frameworks. But I think competition also fosters strength and growth.
That's right, and I think one of the things that we talk about, and I think every company needs to figure this out. And you've mentioned it; it's a crowded market. I mean, it's just the barrier to entry into this particular business is pretty low. You can get a van.
It's not as low as it used to be. Not if you're going to be a qualified, certified person. I mean, so I think you have those tiers of, if you're just a mom and pop, doing the Subway shop in the evening, that's one thing. But if you're a $1 million company, you're not in that category. So that entry level, I think, is not as small as what people think.
Correct. That's right. So I think as you progress, and again, as companies grow and they get on up into that $1 million range, approaching that $1 million range, so you're getting into another strata. And I think that's where it's really important to sit down with your team. If it's you can just talk to yourself. But I think bring some leaders in your organization or find somebody to come in and say, help me think through the process of how we are different than the other folks that we're competing with. And it's difficult to do that because there's not a lot of significant innovation that's going on in this industry, but there's some things that make companies different, and focusing on that, and then spending time to understand what is it that customers really want and pairing that with what your company's strengths are. And I think that's an exercise that we all need to go through. And I can tell you at Frantz Building Services, that evolved over time. So when I got to Frantz, our average size customer was probably $2,500, $3,500 a month. And when I left, it was more like $17,000 to $20,000 a month. And so that just evolved over time as we decided who we wanted to be.
Well, and what you're talking about here is, I think there's a number of people that may be listening today that are just getting started. Mm-hmm. These conversations, you don't have enough input. You don't have enough data. You don't know enough about where you are, what you're doing to even consult. But when you get into that 1 million today, now we have data to work with to be able to answer that next growth. So when you're talking growth, there's stages of that growth that require different amounts of data, forecasting, and consultation by folks like you and I.
That's dead on. And I saw that played out at Frantz Building Services. And honestly, we're not the only industry that does this. I mean, we're We're just talking our specifics today. Yeah, that's right. But so to your point, I think and I think this is why planning and using folks, consultants, coaches, whatever the case might be, I think it's good to have people helping you along the way, kind of an outside voice that says, hey, let me ask a few questions and gather some information to say, have you thought about this? Or as I listen to what you're saying, one thing that may be a consideration might be, these are, for instance, these are industry segments it seems like you guys, in terms of operations, are really dialed in on. And maybe here's a couple that maybe are not a best fit for you. I'll give you a quick example. When I came to work at Frantz, we were serving a number of government agencies, local, state. We didn't have anything federal, but local and state. I discovered when I was going out and doing sales that we were at somewhat of a disadvantage, just because of the structure of our business. And also, I found that a lot of those were all very much driven by what the proposed price was. And that's just not a business that we were set up to do. And we just decided, hey, let's quit pursuing that. If a government, if a local government swam up to the boat, we would dip it out, we'd try to catch it. But to your point, I think it's important to spend time each year reviewing this information. And I do think an outside set of eyes is helpful.
And I think that's whenever somebody said, well, you're going to be talking with your competition, they're in consulting like you. I'm like, I think that's the point we're trying to make today is, when you get a bunch of BSCs together, I remember back in the 80s when I ran mine, it was like, no, we don't want to talk together. We don't want to. I'm like, wait a minute, guys. We do want to talk together. We want to strengthen our industry so that we, as a group, as a cleaning, that we can move the bar up. I think now you're finding more BSCs are actually doing this. This is why we have the conferences and people are learning. Even in the consulting, some of my best friends are consultants just like me.
That's right. And guys like you and Jerry Flug, I know Jerry's been on there too. Right. You guys have had just years of industry experience. And again, the fact that you're 68 and have a podcast shows that you have changed over time and learned things. So it's important to find somebody like you or Jerry who done things and are changing with the times. But there is just so much wisdom that can be learned from people who've been through this, because it's some things never change, and those are the things that and that's important to know. And so yes, I do think it's finding people with a wealth of knowledge is hard to find, but there's plenty of folks out there like you guys that do that.
Well, one of the things you say that there are some things that don't change. I think the number one thing is every organization that I have worked with in the cleaning industry over all the decades now, it still is employee issues. And I never understand why that people have such a problem putting their number one most valuable resource in a class to get certified professional education. I just can't understand it, Jeff. I mean, here we are, all this, we want to complain about turnover, we want to do all this, but yet I can't get people to bring their frontline workers into class. Oh, we'll do it ourselves. But that isn't right.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you this too. I think there's, when you think about people who are working in these cleaning jobs, our frontline cleaners, and then right. Maybe our supervisors and team leads, those kind of folks. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think we have a default position that says most of our people aren't going to stay with us for a year. So I'll just do it in-house, and why do I need to spend time out? But the flip side of that is gosh, maybe if you said, hey, when you come on, we're going to get you, do some orientation here. But I've got but maybe a career path, but I've got a training path for you that includes being in this class and this, all of those things, to say, because I want you to be the best that you can be in your job. I think if folks concentrated on that and spent some time in defining that path, that I think we might have people that would stay with us a little bit longer. And you know this, people who are certified, who have went through that training, they become better team members. And this is directly related to when you have better team members, you serve your customers better, which is another thing that never changes. And that is the best way to grow your business is to serve customers really at a high level.
You went there already. I was going there. My mind was going right there, Jeff. I mean, I was like, he's talking about growth. Growth does not come from retraining.
No, that's correct. Yes, that's right. And so, if we have, and that's, I used to say when I was doing business development at Frantz, I said, the best tool that I have is a list of satisfied customers. I can speak and everybody's kind of saying the same thing. I tell this story. I went to one of the first people I called on when I worked at Frantz, and the guy was just sitting there and listening. He was a medical practice administrator, large medical practice. And he listened, and he said, you know what? He said, about one time a month, people come in here and they say exactly the same thing that you do. And so, but if we're developing our people, if we're spending time and we're making them feel like there's part of something bigger than just going out and cleaning restrooms and emptying trash, if we say, hey, we want you to be the best because we want our company to be best. And when you're the best that you can be, then we're all going to win and we're going to serve customers well. And that's going to help us grow.
Well, I mean, customer satisfaction doesn't come because of AI.
No, it does not. And I think that you're exactly right. You can't AI that.
I'm sorry. I mean, and folks don't get me wrong. If you're listening or watching, we appreciate it. AI is something I use, but it is not my most valuable resource.
That's right. And there's no substitute. I mean, the fact is if you're serving customers, every night somebody's got to be in that building. There's not a robot that's going to go out and clean the restroom.
Not yet, Jeff.
That's right. Not yet. But I mean, I'll let me mention this. My first job when I was old enough to get past mowing grass and cleaning cars in the neighborhood was I worked for 2 years, my junior and senior year, as a janitor, evening janitor, and or a custodian in the elementary school that I cleaned. And I opened up one of our conferences saying, hey, we're still using in a lot of cases the same tools that I used when I was 16, 17 years old. I mean, we're still using, we didn't have microfiber mops, but we had so we had all that. So the point is I think that we're not sending robots out there, and the robots haven't been developed in 40 years. And so I think we have to say that day in, day out, we need to have good people who've been trained well going into our customers' buildings, and not only going in and doing the work, but understanding that the work that we do is going to do a couple of things really well. And we need to share this with our team members. And that is, when we do our work well, that allows that person and that team to focus on what they do, whether that's treating patients or that's building chassis or that's educating students. It's when we empty the trash and we clean the restrooms, that frees them up so that they don't have to think about those things. And that makes them more productive. It makes their life better. It reduces their stress. And then the last one I think is it makes the decision maker look good. And so I said, our business is about making you and your building look good because you selected our company.
Oh, Jerry, Jeff, I'm sorry. There's so many things I could hit with on all of what you just said, and I don't think we really want to get into the ops part of this. You got rid of that. You want to stay in management. The other part. So I'm gonna leave that one go. Because I'm a techie guy. I like tech, and I like that front line. I'm all about taking care of that frontline person. And some of what you said is true, and I have a problem with, and that is we are still in this industry too locked in to doing the same thing as we were 50 years ago. We're still doing the same practices with some of the same tools, and I have a real problem with a lot of that.
Yeah. And you're right. I think that that's
I'm
correct.
sorry, I had to get it out there. I just couldn't leave it alone.
No, you're right. And so I think that's where I think folks who create operational training and operational coaching like you do can really help a company say, hey, here are tools and methodologies that you can do to not only make your cleaning more efficient, but make it much more effective. And, we're in this, all of us in this business, I don't think anybody in here would argue that this is not a high margin business. So that's one of the great challenges that we have is how can we clean really well, and how can we do it pretty quickly so that we've got a budgeted number of hours. So how do we make it work there?
But Jeff, back to the customer satisfaction part of it. I know over the decades, it's all been about appearance. I'm finding that while appearance is always still going to be there, don't get me wrong, folks, I'm not saying it isn't, that health is starting to outweigh appearance. But I also believe that this is where the group of us, and I say the group, us in the cleaning industry, the consultants, the BSCs, in-house providers, if we change our narrative, then the customer's acceptance to the performance will change as well.
That's right. And I think there was so many bad things that came from COVID. One of the things that was helpful to us as an industry is it brought to the forefront, hey, how important it is to have a company in your building who knows what it means to keep your building safe. And so I do think that has, it's always been there.
Right.
But I think that shined a spotlight on it. And so I do think that understanding and having folks like you who can teach our team members, and not only team members, but leaders in companies, how important it is to bang the drum of we're not only going to make your facility look good, but we're also going to keep it clean and healthy so that it can reduce the amount of time that team members are out. Also, when not team members like their employees, but also people that are working in companies now, they expect more from their employers. And one of those is I work in a healthy, clean environment where I'm not going to get sick, and I'm not going to take that back home to my family.
Well, I'm going to go back to your prior career there that you mentioned. You were in the healthcare medical area, now into this. I still contend that we're in the healthcare business.
Yes, there is. I would agree. That's part of it. Is there's prevention. I think we're frontline for prevention. That when these things come out, you think about it. We're in educational spaces. We're in manufacturing spaces. We're in all of those spaces.
Yes.
And you can be on all kinds of medicines, but if we're not doing our job to make sure that the bacteria and the germs are taken out of the building or reduced, that you just can't fight that. And so, so I think what we do is critically important. And I would agree. We're in the healthcare business and the prevention side.
So see, this is where I contend that, and hey, this is why we have a podcast, folks, where we can voice our opinions. And hey, you got yours, I got mine, and somebody else listening to this might have theirs.
Yeah.
But I think this is where, I've heard this many times. Well, it's a low margin, and you just said this. But I believe that as we move the needle to more the health instead of the appearance, we can change that. But that narrative, as you said, who's going to beat the drum?
That's right. That's right. And it's selling that. I'll say this: selling that to companies. It takes.
Okay, so now you guys put that sales hat on that you talked about.
That's right. So when I go in and we're selling to customers, they have to be aware that is a problem that's out there. So we don't have to convince anybody that if their cleaning company is forgetting to empty the trash, or not refilling the toilet paper and the paper towels, and that's a distraction. We don't have to sell anybody on that because they know that. But the next, to sell somebody on, hey, what we do is we do healthcare prevention services in your building. So now if you present that to a decision maker or a decision making team, they have to take that in and say, what's that worth to me? Now, it's worth a lot to them. And maybe that's something as the industry that we need to do. And we need to maybe do a study to say, what are we doing when we talk about healthcare prevention? What are the numbers? Could we say, hey, we find that our industry or our companies that we serve have less employee sickness or absences due to sicknesses? I think we need to sell it somehow that companies go, you know what, that is worth paying a little extra for us to find in a company who understands that.
Well, I was talking with a person that wasn't on a podcast. We've been talking about getting him on a podcast. One of the conversations we were having is, as we're seeing more people come back to the workplace, which is the trend now, right? What is coming into the facilities, and how are we protecting their health? Because you and I both, Jeff, as we're doing this podcast today here in 2025, we know another pandemic is coming. How are we preparing ourselves for that before it gets here? And unfortunately, now that we're several years past the last one, there's some of that's waning, and it's up to us to bring this forward. And this is where he was like, where my growth is going to come from, back to what you were saying, is I've got to now measure and solidify and be sustainable in the market that's going to make me the more profit later.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that is right or wrong. I'm just saying this is our conversation. Your feelings?
Yeah. Oh, I think one of the things, you bring up a great point. I think everybody during the COVID era, that was, whatever it was, 2.5, 3 years. I mean, it was talked about a lot. But I think that the companies that want to sell on this, or want to not sell on this, but want to push that push that agenda forward, is doing research. And this is where I think AI can really help. So ChatGPT, any of those, I think we can create content that we can present to companies to say, hey, we're the company that's out here, or we're the companies out here who are staying ahead of what are the types of things that are diseases or pandemic or any of those things that are coming up. And here's the tools, and here's the ways that you can prevent that from being in your building. I think if we can say to companies, hey, I know this is off your mind because COVID's in our rearview mirror, but just know that us as a company, we're staying on the forefront of those things that are coming along, and we're gonna send you information as we go. So one of the things that we do in our business at Frantz is we have a little nurturing process. So once we've made an initial connection with somebody, we nurture them by sending information to them, content about things. And I think this is where somebody could really capitalize on this, is doing some research and periodically sharing with potential customers and customers the ideas around healthy cleaning.
So folks, if you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate you watching the video. If you're listening to one of our podcasts, we're out there now on like 6 different podcast channels. Wherever you get your podcast, I can guarantee you we are now there. It's taken some time, but we are there. The thing that you talk about here is growth and motivation and moving forward. We talked about, we do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, right? Mm-hmm. I recently posted something and got a little bit of a comment back. Not that that's anything new for me. But to what you're just now saying, Jeff, is the customer always right?
Is the customer always right? Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I made a post, and I'm not going to tell you what it was because I don't know if you saw it or not, but I'm going to tell you what I said, but I want to hear what your version of that is.
Yeah, I think that the customer, that's a good question. No,
I usually don't ask many questions, but you kind of led into something here for me, Jeff. So
I would say no, not always. And I think that here I'll put a little pinpoint on this. Okay. If you are a customer or you're a buyer of janitorial services and you're almost exclusively looking at the price only, then you are wrong. Because I do believe that it's imperative to work with companies who understand how to clean your facility well, for health, for looks, for all of those things. And so, no, I don't think the customer's always right if they're mostly looking for price and always talking to us about reducing our price.
So, my thing here is well, of course, see, I guess the thing is you mentioned age a little earlier. So, hey, well, since we talked about this, my dad said at a point in your life, you'll just say what you think and everybody will have to live with it.
Right.
I haven't quite gotten there, Jeff, but I'm getting close to those days.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, no, the customer is not always right. And I don't give any room on that. My point is this. They hire professionals cleaning service to clean their building. Why should they tell us how to do that and for what reason? I don't tell them how to do their job. They wouldn't want me to tell them how to manufacture their product. Why are we in the cleaning industry so willing to just roll over and let people tell us what to do? Just because of the price or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot there. I think a lot. No, I think a lot of it is there's I think there's a desire to hang on to business again because there's so much competition that we're willing to say, well, yeah, we'll kind of fudge your way a little bit, but I don't think I would say where I work, I don't think that at Frantz Building Services or where I work, I don't think we would have allowed a customer, we would have stayed with a customer, I guess, that was willing to compromise the health or integrity of their facility by telling us not to do something. I think I make this joke. I said, there's nobody in any of our customers, our, medical practices, public venues, manufacturing facilities. Nobody starts their budget process with, hey, hey, should we be spending more on janitorial? So that's a real challenge for us. Even at Frantz Building, when I was working at the medical practice, the physician owners were always looking at items like how much does it cost to mow our grass and clean our building, and man, that sounds like a lot of money. So, well, they're in here 5 days a week. They're cleaning these things so we can keep it safe. I was trying to beat the drum as the medical practice manager for us to continue to pay our janitorial company more, but that is a real challenge, and that's all the industries in our country that we're serving are also trying to reduce their cost as much as they can. And unfortunately, janitorial services tends to get in the crosshairs. And so we got to fight on that. We got to push forward, bang the drum to say, hey, we can't cut back on the time it takes us to do the things that we need to do to keep your facility looking good and to keep it healthy.
So, Jeff, you rolled right into what I say when it comes to that, right? You want growth.
Right.
Talk a different language. The thing about it is I haven't seen, and people, can argue with me here. Hey, folks, hey, champion all those kind of comments. Bring them to me. That's how I keep learning, right?
Right.
Have they ever cut the safety budget? Did they cut the healthcare budget? We're talking the wrong language. We are, and it's because if you talk cleaning, we don't have money for cleaning. But if I talk health, if I talk safety, isn't this where we're going to get our growth from?
Yeah, it can be. It can be. But we as an industry have to do things in order to do that. I'll tell you kind of a parallel. My brother worked for ran a little niche manufacturing business that created covers for backflow valves. Some people would put backflow valves inside buildings, or they would put them in vaults, which both of those weren't good practices.
Prevention.
But they as a company, they had to pound the drum to architects and building owners to say, get that backflow valve out of your building and get it above ground, because if they go into the vaults, there's all kinds of things, including death, that could happen. And if you put it in your building, it floods your building.
Right.
And it was just a work. And I think as an industry, that's a movement that I think industry wide that it would help us all if we could promote that idea of you don't cut any of these other budgets, why cut ours?
Okay, so you mentioned conference. I saw this. Talk to us about this conference that's coming up. Now, folks, if you're listening to it, Jeff's going to tell you what we're looking at. Yeah,
so we're having this year. This is our first leadership conference. We've had workshops in Owensboro, Kentucky, which is where Frantz and Elite is headquartered. We've had workshops before, but we had some folks that came to us and said, "Hey, listen, I want to go to industry events, and I would like to bring my leadership team. So I want to bring my HR person. I want to bring my ops person and my back office person and my salesperson. I want to bring those folks." But it's expensive to travel. And so we looked at a map and looked where we were. And so we said, let's hold a leadership conference in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a couple of hours from Owensboro. But it's easier to get to than Owensboro. I mean, to get to Owensboro, you have to fly. Yeah, I've said you have to get a pack mule, and then you have to get on a plane. You have to fly. Anyway, so we've got it in Louisville. But here's what's different about this conference. It starts on Monday with a reception, and then Tuesday all day, and then half a day Wednesday. There's no keynote speakers. It's all breakout sessions. And so all of these are sessions, and the sessions themselves come from topics where we spend our time in conversations with people during coaching sessions. And then as a member of Elite BSC, we have a message board, a really active message board where our members can put anything out there from, "Hey, I'm bidding on this manufacturing facility. What are some things that you could share?" All of those topics came into the sessions that we're going to do. And most of the session leaders are people who are working in part of building services contractors or janitorial companies. So we've got a great group of speakers. About half of the sessions are panel led. And so let's say, for instance, I just spoke to this morning to a guys. We're going to talk about how do you pursue large customers? What are some things to think about if you've never pursued a large customer? So I'm the moderator, and I've got two panelists. So it's very workshop oriented, networking oriented. Go in a session, listen, and ask questions kind of thing.
So, folks, this is why I want to bring this up, because, there's conferences that happen all over the country. Somebody said it's conference season. Well, hey, we all know that. It's, the summer is going away, depending on what part of the country you're in.
Right.
Not here in Florida yet. It
never goes away.
No, we're in the rainy season now. But I think this is the thing is, and my point that I wanted to, as you led today, you've had 4 different careers, if you will, what you said. But the same thing is that growth is always the important thing. And so when you go to a conference, folks, don't think only about what can I get from it. It's about what can I also give. I think that's some of the important thing that people don't really think about.
I would agree 100%. So I go back when I was in the natural gas industry. I live in Tennessee, and it was called the Tennessee Gas Association. There was American Public Gas Association. Those conferences, and then even when I was a medical practice manager, we had the American Academy of Orthopedic Executives. There was so much value that you could glean from going to those conferences. And just like what you said, and I think everybody needs to know this. when you go to a conference, even if it's your first time and you're new to the industry, if you work in another industry, that knowledge that you bring is helpful. And so I would, as you go, just go ready to share what you know, and also listen to others and just make friends. There's tons of people in this industry that want to see others succeed, and I think that's just a real blessing.
I think a lot. There's a number of people that think about going to these conferences. Well, what's going to be my ROI? And they get back from one and go, well, I don't know what I think the thing with conferences or shows, trade shows, of any of these things like we're talking about here as we end this, it's not what you got today, but it's what you build as you go. And don't go to a conference. Don't go to just one. You need to continue to do this, no matter whether you're a 1 million or 20 million.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have one of our members of Elite BSC is a really large building services contractor. I mean, pretty good size, and they joined our group. And so I always have an introductory call. And I said, hey, I just got to ask you a question. Well, why did you join Elite? And he said, you know what? Even as big as we are, we're learning stuff all the time. There's new things that are coming out. There's things that other companies are doing that we find ideas and we go, my goodness gracious, we've never thought about doing that. And so you're right. I think never quit going. And I would say as much as you can, try to bring your leadership team or bring like a field manager, somebody in. Not only does that expose them to an industry and they go, gosh, you know what? I've never thought about this. But I look around and these are great people. I might make a career out of this. And so I would encourage companies to bring, maybe even, frontline cleaners to some of these things as well.
So, Jeff, I really thank you for coming on today. Here we went 45 minutes, and it's like, I think we can talk for hours, right?
I think we can. We'll do a part 2.
Part 2. Part 3 and 4 coming on later.
Yeah, right.
You know what? As you say this, Jeff, I'm always looking for somebody that wants to come on a routine basis. So I'll make that offer to you right now.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Yeah.
Now, before we wrap this up, I always ask a couple questions, but before I do that, what would be that word of wisdom from a coaching standpoint for somebody listening today that you can give them?
Because I would say, this might sound really simple, but that
doesn't matter. I mean, there's somebody listening that simple's going to be what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think we all have to ask ourselves the question, why are we doing what we're doing? I think we all have to have a greater purpose about our work. And so if you're an owner of a janitorial services company, I think you what is it that you want to accomplish? And I would say most of us want to create a great place to work and serve customers really well. So it really comes down to serving. I think if you have a servant's mentality, I think you have to take that on and you have to say, hey, we got to keep the doors open, so we need to make profit. But if we need to serve customers well, we need to serve our team really well and keep that in balance. I think that's probably, and my dad kind of drilled that into my head as I was growing up. Just, we got to serve people, and we got to serve team, and we got to serve people and our customers really well. I know that there's a lot to unpack on both of those, but I think I would keep that in the forefront of my mind always.
Jeff, I want to say thank you for coming on and spending your time with us. Hopefully you'll be back and share some more wisdom later on. There's 2 questions I ask of every guest on their first visit with us.
Okay.
First one with, he's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Oh my gosh.
Where were you born?
I was born in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Knoxville, Tennessee. And let's see, that would have, we don't want to go back there. So the second question is, I know we're halfway through 25 right now, but in the rest of this year, what's on your personal bucket list?
Yeah, personal bucket list.
Personal, not business, not for the family, for Jeff himself.
A personal bucket list. Wow, that's a good one. Oh wow.
Yeah, when you take business and family out of it, well, wait a minute.
Well, we've got here's what I would say, personal bucket list. My wife and I we took our kids to Italy about 3 years ago. We'd like to go back to Europe. So planning a trip back someplace into Europe would be good. I think that's something good for folks to do, is venture out of this country. a lot, because you appreciate other cultures that are out there, but you also get a pretty good appreciation of where we live and how we're blessed to live in this country.
So you went to Italy. So what other part of Europe do you want to go to then, Jeff?
I think I'd like to go to Germany. I think I'd like to check that out. Maybe Spain. I think that would be a good place to go. But we liked Italy enough to go back. We had a foreign exchange student that lived with us during her senior year, and we visited her while we were in Italy, and we loved it over there. It's yeah.
And I'm always. Hey, I got to just tell you this as you were talking about that. I have had several people say exactly what you are in some different form or fashion.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for the person that says, I want to go to New Zealand.
Oh yeah. So that'd be kind of cool too.
It's like one of these places that nobody talks about. I'm like,
right.
And hey, for whatever.
I think the reason people don't go, it's a long flight over there.
It's a long flight no matter what. Hey, folks,
right.
Here's the thing. You might be wondering, why did I ask Jeff these questions here at the end of the podcast? We appreciate your time, Jeff. Thank you for coming on. But here's the reason. Folks, as we leave you today, we know where Jeff was born. We know what he's been doing in that length of time between then and now. We know that he wants to go to Europe and take his family and do some more sightseeing and cultural stuff. What we don't know is what your journey is. So my advice to you, make sure that you keep that journey that you're on healthy, positive, and proactive. Till the next time, stay safe out there, folks. Come back, share, like, subscribe. Bye.